College life. A time for late night cramming, questionable cafeteria food, and, if you choose, the history major. Some of the weirdest class name in gaming history. So, hello everyone, my name is Reese, and today we are going to dive into Sims 2 university life and the history major. And the first thing is to have Tank Grunt actually choose what to study. So here we have the history major. The study from the past, from paintings of the earliest cave sim to last week's change of menu in our local schools. Those who study history often go into military service or politics due to their desire to reverse the mistakes of the past to make a better future for Simkind. Wow, no pressure, Tank, but this seems like a perfect fit. So in the university, the first year is called freshman year, and the first semester there we have a subject called Intro to History, People More Important Than You. And the name could be a reference to the way history is often taught, focusing on influential figures like kings and generals and politicians, rather than ordinary people. So it could be a satirical or critical take on traditional historic science, which tends to prioritize great men over the collective experience of everyday people. Personally, I also think that since a game is from 2005, it could also be like a critique on the growing individualism in the 2000s, where the game came out, and maybe also the liberalism of the 90s, where history seemed indifferent because globalism and peace had become stable in some part of the world at least. And it had created the thought that global trade and freedom could maintain a somewhat eternal peace. So people more important than you could be that you are only a small individual in a very large world, and even though everyone is seemed to be able to conquer the world in this global time, there are people out there much more important than you in time. It could also be a critique on elitism in historical narratives and a humorous take on how students might feel when learning history, being told that only certain figures matter. So if we take a look at the second semester in the freshman year, the subject is called Civilization, Why It's Rarely Very Civil. So the phrase or the name is likely a reference to the often violent, oppressive or chaotic nature of human history, despite the term civilizations suggesting order and progress and refinement. So it could be a play on the irony that civilizations are often built through conquest and war and slavery and oppression. And also a critique of the idea that civilization inherently means peace and moral advancement. So this is a humorous way, I might say, maybe even sarcastic, of introducing students to history by highlighting its darker and less civil aspects. And in my opinion, I also think that its critique on the romantically clouded view on the great civilizations like the Roman, where many slaves and other people were treated quite badly. So many civilizations came out of war, oppression and colonizations, and there's always barbarians who wasn't hurt during this civilized time. But when your sim moves forward and gets to the sophomore year, the second year, the first semester is a class called Revisionism. It's not liable if they're dead. The name is likely a reference to historical revisionism, the process of reinterpreting historical events, often in a controversial or provocative way. It points out that once historical figures have passed away, historians can critically reassess their actions without fear of being sued for defamation or anything like that. So libel refers to a false statement that can harm someone's reputation, but legal claims typically apply only to the living. So, well, it's not libel if they're dead. The name might also allude to how historians frequently re-evaluate figures from the past, sometimes casting them in a new light, both positive and negative, and thus also claiming that history is also a matter of the time we look at from the time that we are currently in. Also, it could be a satirical take on biographies, so it could be referencing the way some historians or writers wait until a person has passed before publishing critical or scandalous takes on their life. In the sophomore second semester, there is a class called Memorizing Names and Dates, an alternative to learning. So the name is a humorous critique on traditional history education, where students are often required to memorize facts rather than actually engaging with deeper historical analysis. A lot of people would argue that history should focus on understanding causes and effects and narratives rather than just memorizing names and dates. History is a science, and memorizing dates and names are not applying any scientific methods or such. And when your Sims get to the junior year, there is a first semester class called Etnography. Why those people seem strange. And the name is, well, most likely at least, a satirical take on ethnography, which is the study of cultures and societies through immersive observation. So historically, early ethnographic studies often had a colonist or Eurocentric perspective, treating non-Western cultures as strange rather than different but equally complex. So this phrase could be mocking that outdating mindset. The name also points out how some people approach cultural differences with ignorance or preconceived notions instead of genuine understanding. When your Sim is a junior and reaches the second semester, the class is called Political Science Majors. Why you should hate them. So the name is likely a jab at political science students, who are often portrayed as these overly opinionated, argumentative, or obsessed with politics students. And in real life universities, there is often a playful rivalry between different majors. So political science students are maybe sometimes stereotyped as insufferable know-it-alls who like discussing policy at every opportunity and are maybe also more focused with the present and the future rather than the past. And it might be a dangerous mistake of forgetting the past. And also, in reality, history is driven by politics. So I guess if you're really rude, you could argue that history is just political science in the past, while political science is history in the making. But at this point, your Sim is getting closer and closer to actually completing university. And when you reach the senior year, first semester, the class is called Anthropology, not as cool as in the movies. So the name is a reference to how anthropology is portrayed in popular culture versus the real life experience. So in movies, anthropology and archaeology are often portrayed as adventurous and like treasure hunting careers. So I'm thinking Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider and stuff. While in reality, I guess it involved a lot of research, fieldwork and paperwork. So I think this is a joke about academic reality, where many academic disciplines are made to look very glamorous in the media, but in reality, anthropology often means digging in the dirt for hours or spending years after years studying cultural patterns in an office. But hey, if I'm wrong, let me know, right? So now it's getting really exciting because this is senior year last semester. And the class here is called Historic Pessimism, Why We'll Never Learn. So, well, the name seems like a satirical comment on the cyclical nature of history, suggesting that humanity repeatedly makes the same mistakes despite having the knowledge and opportunities to learn from the past. Oh, yeah, sigh. So, The name reflects a common pessimistic view on history, and also a view that past mistakes like wars and economic crisis or political corruption is just impossible to end. So this idea is popular in discussions of historical determinism or cyclical history. But the names of the subjects aren't actually the only interesting details that you can find in this major. There's actually also quite a lot of fun at looking into the skills needed. Because the skills you need the most of getting a major in history is the mechanical skill, it's the charisma skill, and it's the logic and creativity skills. So I'm guessing that the mechanical skill makes somewhat sense because of technological and industrial history. So it could be seen as a reference to the way technology and machinery have shaped historical events. I mean, think about how revolutions in mechanical technology, such as the Industrial Revolution, has had massive impact on society, economies, and even politics. So mechanical advancements have often marked key historical turning points, shaping the course of history. Also, a sim developing mechanical skills could be seen as a metaphor for the way historical figures like inventors or engineers have altered the course of history through their work in mechanics and technology. And if we think about the charisma skill, charisma is important for historians who need to effectively communicate their findings. They need to teach or engage in public speaking, so it does make sense. And it could also be a reference to the importance of eloquently representing history. So many well-known historians or public intellectuals have charisma as a part of their ability to actually reach an audience or a wider audience. And public engagement with history requires strong interpersonal and communication skills. So it's not just enough to be able to read books and to study, you need to communicate. And then we have the logic skill. So logic is crucial for analyzing historical events in a structured and systematic way, which is what is making history a science. And historians often need to use logic to evaluate sources and interpret data and to connect disparate events or facts. So this could be a reference to that critical thinking skills needed for doing historical research and to applying scientific methods. And when you are analyzing primary sources, understanding cause and effect and drawing conclusions, it all requires logical thinking. And the last one, creativity skill, is a bit fun, I think, because this skill is likely a pun on how historians need to craft compelling narratives and interpretations of the past. So creativity plays a role in how historians write about history, make connections between different events, and engage an audience, of course. And historical narratives are often shaped by creative storytelling, especially in books, documentaries, or in public history. So it may allude the way history is presented in different media, but also that a historian can shape history or bias history by doing a little bit of creative thinking. But there we are, now your sim has a major in history. So please let me know in the comments which of these subjects did you find most fun to look at, and well, if I missed anything, you need to share it with us. The thought and the detail put into these majors, I love it. I think it's great fun to actually follow in classes exactly because of these names and these thought-in puns. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that it was also somewhat informative and still somewhat funny, right? But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and stay tuned for other videos. Bye!